mystics, gods, and flower children alike, welcome back to my channel. I'm Anitra. How y'all doing today? What's up? So, today's video is about this. I got this coloring book a couple years back. It is a tarot coloring book. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. And it has all the major arcana, I think, in it. And I've been wanting to color in it for a while. I did one page, but eh. And I was like, well, I've been wanting to do that thing where people take one art supply and not combine it, but match it versus, there you go, against another one. So that's what I'm doing today. We're doing Crayola washable markers versus Ohuhu. I know they're not the same thing at all, but I wanted to try it and see what it would look like up against each other. So that's what we're doing today. And the page that we're doing is the Temperance page. I'll be reading about that later because they have definitions of each one in the book. And yeah. So with that being said, let's, not make this a very long intro. Let's just cut it and let's just keep it going. Anyway, let's get started with the video. Peace. I mean, not peace. Let's go. So here is the coloring book. It is called Tarot Coloring and it's illustrated by Alexis E. Thompson. And the pictures in here are of the 22 major arcana in tarot. So you have things, of course, like Temperance, you have the High Priestess, you have the Magician, you have the World, the Fool, things of that nature. All of the major arcana. I don't know how to do this because I don't want to rip it out of the page, but I think I might have to. I don't know, but it does have the serrated edges in it, so you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No. Okay. Okay, so now that I have taken that page out to make it easier for me to color and to show you guys, let's go on to the first material that I'm going to be using on the left-hand side of the page. And the first thing that I'm going to use is Ohuhu. I am using my Ohuhu dual tip brush tip markers, where one side is a brush and the other side is a chisel nib. You guys have seen me use these multiple times, so you know what the deal is. So let's get started. And also, I will try to put what colors I am using in the bottom right hand corner, so hopefully I can remember them all. Some might be there, some might not. And of course, the page that I chose is Temperance, and the book describes this card as, this card is primarily concerned with balance. The chalices mixing water with wine represent the duality between the conscious and subconscious minds. The crown emblems in the border indicate the importance of taking a higher path in pursuit of life's true meaning. With that information, I decided to turn the grapes in this picture into the really dark purpley wine grapes. So I decided to do that, and I got all of the deeper purples and cool tone purples and deeper blues to give each one its own little bit of depth. So that's what I'm doing here. So you'll notice as I continue to color in this page that some of the grapes are going to have the dark blue to purple gradient, but they're also going to keep going into this kind of reddish, purpley pink sort of color. And that is because in the reference picture of wine grapes that I was using, some of the grapes, well, most of the grapes were that dark purpley color, but then some of them had this more kind of reddish burgundy spot on the front of them. I don't know if it's because that's where the sun touches more. I don't know if that's just how they grow, but I did want to incorporate that into this coloring page to kind of make them as close to that as possible. Not realistic, because there's no way I can make it realistic, but as close to the real thing as possible. after the grapes were done, I started working on the leaves and the stems. I wanted for the leaves to be a warmer tone than the grapes, of course, so that they would, have a really nice contrast. So I used a bunch of warm green, a bunch of warm like yellows and chartreuse and all that stuff. Okay, so you can see the swatch card right next to my hand as I work on these sections. And I use these kind of pastel greens and a little bit of these pastel like purpley browns as a way to color in the stems. And then the two deeper browns, the really warm ones, I'm using for the one branch that's like going across the top. Now onto the card itself. For that I used a bunch of yellows and warm browns to give this sort of like golden card look. And this is because I just wanted to stand out against all of the, like, yes, I used a warmer green, but just a little bit more warmth, a little bit more of like a gold shininess. And I also colored in the little crown emblem with that same kind of dark goldeny brown, and used a slightly darker goldeny brown for the surrounding part of the word, of this front half of the word temperance, just to keep the kind of goldish theme going. Now it's time for the wine and the chalice. And for the wine, I made it look like red wine, of course. So I used the deeper reds and a little bit of pink for like the highlights of the edges where I wanted the like the light to reflect off of it. And I also used those same golden yellows that I used for the border of the card. I used those for the chalice, which you will see in a little bit. For the word temperance itself, I used the same reds that I used for the wine just to keep everything cohesive. I just made it a deeper shade, so not the exact shade, but a little bit deeper. Again, just to keep everything cohesive, but I do think it looks really cool. At the top of the page, there are these bubbles right here, and I think the bubbles are coming from the water pouring into the chalice. So I decided to make those a part of the water, and because of that, I made them a really light blue color, but I wanted to give them the effect of being see-through. Now I'm working on this like wave in the background, and I wanted that to look like the mixture of both the wine and the water together. So that's why it is the same tone, but it's a little bit lighter. I didn't want to go too deep like the wine in the cup, so I wanted to be a little bit lighter to look a little bit mixed, you know, or like diluted. There you go, that's the word I'm looking for. Because of this, I used a lot of warmer reds, a lot more pink, and I also used the colorless blender to kind of make it a little bit more see-through than the wine in the cup. There is a secondary border on this card, and at the top it's hidden behind all the leaves and the grapes and stuff. And I kind of wanted it to just be like a lighter color, you know, add a little bit more light and brightness to this piece. So I made them into neutral grays, again, to keep the piece light looking and brighter. You know, there's a lot of colors going on. You need some kind of negative space, I guess. And with that, the Ohuhu side is finished. Okay, so for the other side, I'm using the Crayola 40 count washable markers. Let's get started. These are going to be used a little bit differently since they do not have a brush nib like the Ohuhus. They have more of like a fine tip bullet nib, I guess. So these had to be done differently. But we're starting on the grapes for right now. And of course, because these aren't alcohol markers, I have to blend them differently. So I'm kind of using a bunch of lines to make it look more like a smooth gradient. So kind of like cross hatching, but not exactly the same.
To delete this message, press 7. To save it in the archives, press 9. To hear more options, press 0.
What are you talking about?
One thing that I do want to say about these Crayola markers is that, of course, they don't layer. They're not made for that. So to make them kind of blend, you have to go over them multiple times. But because of that, the paper starts to get kind of warped, and then you kind of end up with this pilling situation. So that can be a little annoying, but I guess, you know, it's worth it to get kind of a seamless blend. So I just kind of pushed through and kept it going. Just like the other side, I wanted the leaves to be warm. So to make everything cohesive, I used both of the yellows that are in this pack and the lightest greens, or the warmest greens that were in this as well. Not a lot of variety in the Crayola pack, you know, compared to the Ohuhu, but it's still good enough to make really pretty leaves. After the leaves, I went over to the water being poured out of the top chalice. I used the lightest blues I had to hopefully give it the same effect as the water on the other side. Just a little bit more of that like semi-cross hatching sort of situation. Now let's work on the top chalice itself. Using yellows, oranges, and browns, I'm going to try and make it look as gold as possible. When it got to the bottom chalice, it was a little bit more difficult to make it that gold color because I wanted it to fit the same like lighting and shadow pattern as the other side, but that's a little bit difficult because it's on the side where I want the light to be, so I had to use as little as possible while still making it as gold looking as possible. Going back to the top, I used the same blues from the water on the bubbles, trying to get that same effect that I got on the other side, just kind of hoping for the best, because it wasn't the exact, I didn't have a really light blue, so this was the lightest blue that I had. But I do think it turned out okay. Okay, so for the waves in the background on this side, I used the color, which I think is raspberry, as a base color for this one. Because it was like the lightest, warmest reddish purple that I had. And it's not going to be exactly the same as the other one, but I do think the transition of these two parts are going to look really nice. So I had to use deeper reds for depth, and I think it turned out pretty well. I completely forgot to talk about the gems on the chalice for the other side, but it's basically the same thing on both sides. I just used these kind of like ruby-ish reds to make them look like rubies. But now that I look at it after I've completely finished it, of course, this is days later, I do wish that I had made them into more bluish gems to kind of break up the red in the middle, but you know, too late now. Anyway, on to the word temperance. For the second half of the word temperance, I started with a base of yellow and then layered a bunch of like orange and brown on top of it to just kind of create this really warm color, trying to match the other side as close as I could. Going back to the leaves and all that stuff, I'm using the browns that I had just used on the word temperance to, you know, just give life to the branches that are kind of woven in between these leaves here. Here's where I think that I might have messed it up a little bit. I used the grays that I had for the inner border, kind of like the other side. But I made this side accidentally a little bit too dark, so it's not as bright. Or at least it doesn't have the same effect as like the other side, like when I used the neutral grays to make it a little bit brighter against all the color. Well, now I've added a little bit of darkness to all the color. I don't think it messed it up too much, but I was a little worried about it. For the outer border of this side of the card, I am still using the same yellows and oranges and browns that I used for the chalice to kind of keep with the gold theme. And I do think this turned out really well. I really liked it. Here I'm working on this small little sign that has the number 14 in Roman numerals, 14 being the number for the card of temperance. I'm starting with a light tan or peachy color, and then I layered some brown over it to still kind of give it that same coloring as the word temperance, but a little bit of contrast and difference. And with that being said, the Crayola side is all finished. So I really like the comparison. I really like how they look side by side. And here is the full piece. Now, before we get into the end card, I do want to go over some of the comparisons between both of them. So let's go. Okay, so let's get on with this chart, starting with Ohuhu. For the price when I bought mine, it was $159.99, which is about $1.05 per marker. Now, in my set, I have 168 markers, my bad. Now on to the pros and cons. Pro is that they're very smooth blending and they have a brush tip, which is very necessary when you use alcohol markers. It's just easier that way. And they have a lot more variety. So there's a lot of colors in here, so you can pretty much color in anything. However, a con is that they are very expensive and they bleed through the back of a lot of different types of paper. So anything that's really thin or that's not specifically mixed media or marker paper, it will bleed through. Now on to the Crayola side. For my pack of these markers, I paid $14.99 for them, which is about $2.67 per marker. And for the set number, it's a set of 40 markers, which is a pretty big set. Now, for the pros and cons. Pros is that you get vibrant colors and they kind of give you a cartoonish look if you want like that kind of flat look. It's really nice. And they don't bleed as bad, so they don't bleed through the back of the paper like the alcohol markers. A con though, or a couple cons, is that they don't layer very well and sometimes they'll kind of like mess up your paper and leave those little paper balls, you know what I'm talking about. And sometimes apparently they leave this kind of shiny tacky layer. I'm showing you in this video here. And I don't know what's going on with that, but I've never seen that before. Apparently they do that. So that's something to look out for. With all that being said though, they're both very fine markers, but they need to be used for different things. If you're looking for like a flat wash of color, you know, kind of like a cartoonish look, or you're just having a good time, you know, no stress, no nothing, then you're using Crayola. Unless that's your jam, then you use it for whatever. But if you're using it for something, like personally, because I'm using it for this coloring book, I would use the Ohuhus better so I can get a better blend and all that stuff. But hey, this is just me. This is my 2 cents. You use whatever you like and you have a good time. With that being said, let's go to the end card. Okay, and that's going to be the end of this video. I really enjoyed this. There are things I liked about both sides and things that I didn't like about either side, but I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. I will be doing this again, probably in the future. Don't know with what, but I'll figure it out. I don't know. Maybe like Prismacolor and something else. I don't know. We'll see. But I had a lot of fun and I will totally do this again. What did you guys think about it? You know, let me know in the comments down below which side was your favorite. What would you have done differently? All that stuff. And yeah, here are all of my social media handles and things. The Etsy probably will be either gone soon or it might just be on delay, but I might also flip and go over to Shopify at some point because I think Shopify matches what I'm trying to do much more than Etsy, but I'll let you guys know in the future. Anyway, with that being said, have a good rest of your morning, evening, afternoon, or night, wherever you are on this wondrous globe. Eat some good food, drink some good drink, get some good sleep, and listen to some good music. Know that there are people on this planet who love you, and I am one of them because I do too. And to my mystics, goths, and flower children alike, I think I did that backwards, but whatever. That's going to be the end of this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye! Peace out! Mwah!